Hello, Vancouver. Thank you.
Hello. All right, so we have an interesting situation here. Obviously, this is part 2, and a few of you were here for what took place last night. We are going to find a way to catch you all up pretty quick on what took place. But before we do that, I thought it might make sense to talk to you about where we are in this discussion and why it matters. And it matters not just for those of us on stage, but it matters very much for you all in the audience. The point is basically this. We've arrived at a place in history where the sense-making apparatus that usually helps us figure out what to think about things has obviously begun to come apart. The political parties, the universities, journalism, all of these things have stopped making sense. And alternative sense-making networks have begun to rise. And the one that we end up being a part of seems to be beating the odds with respect to staying alive and being a vibrant part of the conversation. But that depends on something. It depends on our ability to upgrade what we can discuss and navigate. And Sam and Jordan have run afoul of each other in the past, as you all know, and so our ability to upgrade the conversation such that they're able to find common ground and for us to move forward together is potentially a very important upgrade. Now, that upgrade in the modern era includes you all, because our conversation and your conversations are all now linked through the internet. So, Sam, would you be willing to start?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, first let me just make the obvious point that probably isn't so obvious unless you take the time to put yourself in our shoes, but just imagine how surreal it is for us to be who we are, simply having a conversation about ideas, and to be able to put a date on the calendar and have all of you show up for this. I mean, it's just an amazing privilege. Thank you for coming out. So here is what I think Jordan thinks I'm getting wrong. I think that was grammatically correct. Maybe there's another note in there. But clearly, I don't understand how valuable stories are, how deep they go, the degree to which stories encode not only the wisdom of our ancestors, but quite possibly the wisdom born of the hard knocks of evolution of the species, right? So there's no telling how deep the significance of the information encoded in stories goes. And there's a class of stories that are religious stories, and they're religious for a reason, because they're dealing with the deepest questions in human life. They're questions about what constitutes a good life, what's worth living for, what's worth dying for. Maybe I'll leave it there, but that's, I think, what Jordan thinks.
All right, Jordan, before you steelman Sam's point, how did you feel about his encapsulation of yours?
Well, I'm convinced, man.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, well, I got a couple of things to say about it. It's like, first of all, I think it was accurate, concise, fair. I also think that this is a more technical note in some sense. Okay, so I'm going to summarize Sam's argument briefly. Sam believes that there are two fundamental dangers to psychological and social stability. Religious fundamentalism, essentially on the right, and moral relativism and nihilism on the left. And so the danger of the right-wing position is that it enables people to arbitrarily establish certain revealed axioms as indisputable truth, and then to tyrannize themselves and other people with the claims that those are divine revelations. And he sees that as part of the danger of religious fundamentalism, and maybe religious thinking in general, but also as something that characterizes secular totalitarian states that also has a religious aspect. So that's on the right. And then on the left, well, the problem with the moral relativism nihilism position is that it leaves us with no orientation, and it also flies in the face of common sense observations that there are ways to live that are bad and that there are ways to live that are good that people can generally agree on, and that statements about those general agreements about how to live can be considered factual. And so I would say that's Sam's argument, and his his criticisms of my position. So,
Okay, so
now,
you
Sam.
write my next book, I'll write yours.
So, Sam, how do you feel about that characterization of your position?
Certainly close enough to get the conversation started. I mean, there's a few, the grounding stuff we have yet to talk about, and I'm not as much a stickler for materialistic scientific empiricism as I heard implied there, but we can come
okay,
to that.
well, that,
Okay, so hold on.
Yep.
Do either one of you want to now talk about what was missing from the other characterization, or how do you want to move?
I think we should touch this issue of metaphorical truth, because I think it still gets at the distance between us.
Sure.
Yep.
And happily, this is your phrase that you have. I mean, you might want to. Do you want to prop up this phrase?
Why not? So the idea of metaphorical truth, which I think actually is the reconciliation between at least the points